Next, we move on to creating characters, arguably the most crucial part of writing a novel. While many might say they have specific stylistic preferences for how they want the writing to flow, or how they expect the narrative to be structured, for the average reader it is the aspect of the characters that stand out. It's what they're most likely to remember and what they want to connect to. So it becomes essential to present this to them in a way that will make them want to know what happens to the character. Your readers need to have an investment in the storyline and really want to know what happens to the people that they have grown attached to. When considering characters, you need to remember that your characters need to pan out in a certain way for them to sound less like cardboard cutouts. We don't want to present characters simply placed there for the purpose of driving the plot forward. What the author needs to do is to create characters that are believable. Can you picture your character as a real person, or do they fall flat? Conversely, do they seem like a caricature of an actual person? They're too outrageous or too different to be real. Give your character attitudes, morals and values. Add some depth and dimension to them so that you can envisage them as being real. To this effect, though we will elaborate more in the next chapter, give your character a voice of their own. They aren't going to sound particularly inventive or real if they all sound like each other. Make sure your dialogue reflects the differences in the people that you are presenting. Additionally, give your characters something the reader can relate to. This doesn't necessarily mean that readers should be able to imagine themselves as a character, but they should be able to relate to them and understand them. There is a need to craft a character with intentions, experiences and a past that shapes and explains why they behave or think the way they do. Even if a character is one that people might not like or agree with, they do need to understand them to some degree. This realism makes the character more relatable, and thus more likely to be acknowledged and followed. We need to name and categorize your characters, but also make them unique. First of all, ask yourself the question, why do they exist? More often than not, if I ask this question about a real person, it would prompt a possible existential crisis. The question of why one does exist and what their purpose is a very personal one. When considering your story, however, you should be able to answer this question, because your character cannot do anything within your story unless there's a rationale, a reason behind why they are there. Craft your characters accordingly to justify their existence in that place at that time in your story. So can you somehow categorize them? I'm not referring to a simple categorization such as according to age, such as a child, teenager, or adult, or something like that. But categorizing your character can go a long way in informing readers how they will act. Choose a personality inventory or type, or try to classify them using other similar means. It will make more sense within the world that you've created. Additionally, it will make the writing process much more comfortable because you're involved in this category and you understand it and you've placed your characters within it. It will also serve to make other aspects of your character's personality much clearer to you, so it can also be used as a planning device. The question arises, can you still make them unique if you categorize them. For a particular main character to have been chosen as the focus of the story over the other characters, there needs to be some reason behind it. There's a certain degree of uniqueness associated with these main characters that the stories are written about, or else you run the risk of making them like everyone else, every other run-of-the-mill character. It's not every kind of character that can be the hero or heroine. Consider your choice of categorization in this too. Maybe they meet the demands of the category in all but one crucial way. Perhaps they even have a particular trait that makes them stand out. Give your character something special that is impressive within the context of the story, while at the same time not being entirely unbelievable and too over the top. So what will you name your character? Now, what the characters are called might seem like a tiny thing to consider in the large scheme of things, in the overall shape of your characterizations. But your character's name does have a significant contribution to make in terms of shaping how you want to tell the story. Like in the case of Remus Lupin. This is a character from the famous series Harry Potter. It can foreshadow some information about the character, but the reader can look back and have an "oh, so that's what this was all about" moment. And it can also help set a tone for the character. Names can also have cultural implications, depending on the cultural context that it is based in. While this is not to say every character's name you use needs to have a secret meaning, but the way you use these names does affect the overall pace of the story, and importantly, how these characters are perceived. Take time to name your characters. Read them out loud. How do they feel within the context of the story? Can they have a mysterious meaning, a secret meaning? If it fits within the genre of your writing, then include them.